Guys, welcome back. Today we are talking about airborne solids, and you can see from my white lab coat that we're going to be talking about something really scientific today. Airborne solids, also known as aerosols, are microscopic pieces of things like ash, dust, leftover bits of, because dust is typically poop from like mites and things like that. Airborne solids can also be particulate leftovers of organisms such as bugs, seashells, you name it. And what happens is these solids are light enough that relative to their size that they can float through the sky like an airborne particle, aerosol, aero, and then the sol, they're solids. So aerosols, airborne solids. And this isn't the kind of aerosol that we find in our hairspray like Aquanet. So this is something different, not completely different, because aerosols do float. They're gaseous typically, and they are typically made out of fluorinated compounds. The reason I know that is because I'm a master in HVAC. I've been practicing it since 1996. I've been practicing refrigeration since 1996. So the reason aerosols, airborne solids, are so important is because they are part of our carbon cycle. And what has happened over the past 60 years is we've broken the carbon cycle, in that an important piece of the carbon cycle is the aerosols. And what happens with the aerosols in the carbon cycle is that the aerosols become rain and snow, because at the heart of every raindrop and every snowflake is an aerosol. And what happens is this aerosol is encapsulated by water vapor, and it just kind of coalesces magically around the aerosol. And this happens en masse. It's how clouds are formed, it's how snowstorms are formed. And here recently, Bill Gates was chided quite substantially. That guy gets a lot of grief for saying that we should seed the clouds with dust. Well, he's right. He's right. Right now we're seeing substantial loss in rainfall in the Midwest and also in China. China's suffering right now from rainfall loss. And so one thing that we can do is we can put airborne solids in the air. Now, some airborne solids that we don't want to be putting into the air are things like leftovers from rocket fuel. So dust from rocket and explosives materials, those are not ideal constituents for aerosols, because they can be highly toxic. I hate to bring it up because I don't want to get demonetized or whatever. The war in Ukraine is causing, the Russians are causing toxic aerosols to be broadcast into the atmosphere en masse. I mean, huge. They've got like 5,000 grad rockets they've shot right now. I mean, it's just, they've probably shot, I don't know how many, a lot, over 5,000, because I know that technically speaking, they've shot at least 5,000, so we could start there. From publicly available sources, they've shot at least 5,000, and those produce toxic aerosols, and we don't want those. Some of the healthy aerosols I described to you earlier, ash from like tree fires, dust from like the Sahara. So when the Sahara Desert makes a big old storm and then brings it across the ocean and dumps it on southern United States, like Florida, Georgia, Alabama, those states receive a lot of their rainfall broadcasts from the Sahara. And it's pretty important. And the United States receives a lot of its rainfall in the Midwest and stuff from the jet stream, bringing in dust from fires in California and the Southwest, and you know, those things are all super important. All of that dust is important. It's all very important. So Bill Gates was right. I have some reservations about Bill Gates. In my heart, I believe that he's done some heinous things that have gone unnoticed or unprosecuted because of the power and scope of his institutions, and there's nothing we can do about that. Time is on our side for that one, however, because he's 67 years old and the average lifespan of a male in the United States is 72. And I don't think he's going to be like George Soros, where the skin's hanging off his face and he's all weird. I think he's just going to, you know, one of these days, you know, he's going to kick the bucket, unfortunately. Because I think he does, for all the dubious stuff he does, I think he does some good in this world that may outweigh his bad, like the dust idea. He's vocal about the dust. And so if we could do that, that would make a huge impact on rain in the contiguous United States and in places like China. And so we need to, probably one of the biggest deficits that we have in thinking is if you're married, if you're an adult and you're married and you've had any conversations with your wife, the first thing out of your wife's mouth when you confront her with anything is going to be no, or, you know, she had nothing to do with it. You could come in and you could say, you made the sky blue. And she'd be like, no, I didn't. Or no, it's not. And so we have that sort of deficit thinking when it comes to things that we don't understand. All of us have that ingrained in us, and it's just a defense mechanism that's built into us. And so when we're presented with ideas like seeding the clouds with airborne solids, like simple airborne solids like dust, iron dust, you name it, just keep it simple. We don't want anything toxic there, just simple stuff that we could broadcast easily. Ash, clean ash, of course. When we're presented with those kind of ideas, our off-the-cuff thing is to say no. And for me, I have to sit back and reflect before I can answer questions like that. So, because I've seen so much of the no, they're dream killers. My whole life, I've watched dream killers destroy everything. And it's amazing that people like Elon Musk and the people that Bill Gates steals technology from are able to succeed, because these people are constantly being, you know, tamped down by the no's and the dream killers. And at some point, you just have to learn to ignore the dream killers and the naysayers. And you just have to keep moving forward. And so something has to happen. We have to start broadcasting dust into the sky, not to reflect the sun like Mr. Gates is saying specifically, however, to seed cloud formations, to seed that water vapor, to coalesce it onto these aerosols so we could have rain. And it is something that the science is there. Of course, there's always going to be arguments one way or the other. And the only person that could do something about that is somebody that's like really strong-minded and understands how like legislative bodies and stuff work. I had my first experience with legislative bodies in middle school, and then in student council, and then also later in life. I'm the 2006-2007 New Mexico State University ASNMSU the Association of Students. That's our student government. I'm the Attorney General from 2006 2007. So I have substantial interactions with legislative bodies relative to most people. Relative to politicians, my exposure is minimal, thank God. And that's been by design. They are, God bless, it's just a mess with them. So getting information to the right people, like there's a video on YouTube where the guy calls all the legislative body members, and he got 53 voicemails and 47 interns. Not one senator, not one congressperson reached back out to him to say, hey, we're listening. If you call, like, let's talk about somebody important like Marco Rubio. He is on the Senate Select Committee for Foreign Intelligence, and so he has a really important role. I hate to pick on Marco. He's from Florida, and people are loving all over Florida right now, and good for them. That's okay. I'm from New Mexico. I'm born and raised in New Mexico, and New Mexico will always have a place in my heart. So I don't want to pick on Marco too much, though. However, people like him, they never answer their phone. It's not that you're going to get a voicemail. It's not that you're going to get an intern. They just don't answer their phone, period. And to me, that's kind of disgusting. And the fact that the videos there showing this guy calling all of these legislative body members and there's almost no response is really disgusting. And it's on both sides, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or whatever, they all ignore us. And the reason they ignore us is because they think we're stupid. They think you're stupid, they think I'm stupid, and they don't care. The problem with that is they're gonna cause a populist revolt, a violent, bloody populist revolt, and they're gonna be at the crux of it. And when you have, like, I don't know, 300,000 people attacking legislative body members because it's not raining and there's no food and stuff like that, there's literally nothing you can do. It's like a zombie attack, except for they're not zombies. It's people who are just pissed off because there's been so many transgressions by legislative body members that they're just absolutely disgusted and they revolt. And so when we're ignored like that, we as the people, it can get pretty disgusting, and that's where we're at. So they're to the point where they don't even want to listen to people like Bill Gates, and that's how he's got tons of money. And that's how you know when things are really bad, is when they're not even listening to their paymasters. So I don't have any quick solutions for that either. I can share with you that airborne solids are really important. They are important because they are part of the carbon cycle. Oh, that's where I forgot the carbon cycle tangent just real quickly. So what happens in the carbon cycle, we've seen it in our science books in school, is carbon is produced. Well, it's not produced, it's an element. So carbon is a part of the carbon cycle in that we get it from places like trees or coal, and then we take the carbon and then over here we burn it, and then it becomes CO2 and other stuff, and then it's recaptured back into organic things like trees and whatnot. Well, up here in the carbon cycle where it's been burned, there's a part that's super important to the planet. And that part is the distribution of airborne solids. And what has happened over the past 60 years is that we've broken that part out with things like scrubbers and catalytic converters. We're vaporizing that stuff. And so we've lost the net cooling effect that comes from the airborne solids, because those have been taken out. So now all we have is burn, capture CO2, grow, burn, capture CO2, so we've taken out the airborne solids out of that, and it is extremely detrimental because now we just have heat exchange and CO2. So we're missing the important part where there's water that is coalesced onto these airborne solids and distributed back into the earth. And so we really need to put that back in. We need to put this one back in, and these are important too. This one's really important. And so we're probably gonna see more of that as this becomes more of a topic, where the airborne solids are put back more into the earth through the elimination of certain types of scrubbers. So fireplaces, the EPA is actually hurting the planet by making fireplaces that don't distribute soots and airborne solids. And like I said, it's one of those discussions where you try to talk to them, and before you can even finish, the answer is no. Before they can even reflect on what you've said to them, the answer is no. And so there's, too many years of that, and it's gonna come to a head, and some things work themselves out, and some things there's people behind the scenes pushing to make things better. And hopefully as time goes by, there will be more people who can quickly and quietly push things in the right direction, such as releasing airborne solids and dusts to help rain. Not necessarily to block out the sun, as Mr. Gates has supposed. So anyway, leave your questions and comments down below.